When plans were announced to build a new mosque and Islamic culture center in New York, some people were outraged.
That's crazy. It's unacceptable. It can't be.
Their issue was about the proposed site, just 2 blocks from ground zero.
It is unconscionable to build a shrine to the very ideology that inspired the jihadist attacks at ground zero, right there.
This house of worship has turned into a house of controversy, and one that has both sides very fired up.
You are talking to me or talking to him?
And all Muslims not terrorists. I'm Muslim, I'm not terrorist. You can't blame
I did not say.
Come on down.
Coney Island was once a popular summer beach destination and amusement park for New Yorkers up until the 1950s. That was when Coney Island was, for all intents and purposes, abandoned.
What's new?
But just last month, a sign of life for the area.
We have the new Luna Park amusement park.
Tonight, we'll take you to Brooklyn and see what's new, what's being planned, and find out why Coney Island has been on such a long ride.
I think we're moving really nicely together, working all together.
By now, we've all heard about Arizona's new law, SB 1070. It's the one that empowers police and law enforcement officials to stop anyone at random and demand to see proof that they belong here.
Just being of a certain race or having an accent, it legalizes discrimination against those people.
We wondered what would happen if SB 1070 was enacted here in New York.
If that comes here, how am I going to live with my family thinking that one day on the way to church, they're going to stop us? Just because we look Mexican or just because, we look the way we look.
Street vendors, artists, and musicians have long been attractions, colorful threads that make up the very fabric of New York.
I like to see all the different things people are selling and the artists, especially the musicians and what they're doing.
Now, Mayor Mike Bloomberg is trying to reduce, if not nearly eliminate them from some of the busier parks.
If it wasn't for places like Union Square and other parks that have artists, a lot of the charm of New York would be lost.
I'm Alicia McLean.
I'm Gary Flores.
I'm Wahida Fowler.
I'm Maria Snow. Those stories tonight on a special City University of New York edition of 60 Minutes.
When plans were announced to build a new mosque and Islamic culture center in New York, some people were outraged. And this was more than bigotry and anti-Islamic sentiment. Their issue was about the proposed site, just 2 blocks from ground zero. Opponents said it was insensitive and a disgrace to those that died on 9/11. Supporters said it was a time to heal those wounds and pointed to the constitutional right to freedom of religion. Either way, this house of worship has turned into a house of controversy and one that has both sides very fired up.
The scene? A recent rally in downtown Manhattan against the planned mosque.
I want to welcome all you patriots, infidels, Muslims of conscience, Christians, Jews, Zoroastrians, who are standing up for what's right. Americans.
USA! God bless America! And God bless America and all the people that are here. God bless you.
Why am I against it? Because it's a holy place. My mother was killed there. You can't have the people who killed her worshiping the reasons that they killed her there, right there. That's crazy. It's unacceptable. It can't be.
Tempers and emotions ran high.
No, I'm talking. You are talking to me or talking to him?
And all Muslims not terrorists. I'm Muslim, I'm not terrorist. You can't blame
I did not say. I did not say that.
There are bad people all over the world.
The terrorists are Muslim. I know you are a nice person. Some Muslims are nice people, but 95.
Praying for these people who died here. They are Muslim. They are not terrorists.
I think it's pretty obvious what we feel, but I want to make sure that people understand what we don't feel. We don't feel racist. We're not bigots. All we are is being sensitive to the people that lost family and friends here. And if it was Jews that did it, we would say don't build a synagogue. If it was Christians, we would say don't build a church.
And here is the source of all the controversy. An unsuspecting old Burlington coat factory, the proposed home for the new mosque called the Cordoba House. On the day we visited, 2 men were already praying, even though work on the mosque has hardly begun. Scenes like this infuriate people like Paul Sipos, a member of Community Board 1 in Lower Manhattan. He is opposed to the Cordoba House.
I just don't understand what their thinking is about this. Why don't they reach out to the family members? Why don't they reach out to the people who are interested in this, in what happens down there, the people who are most sensitive to this area?
Would it be a reasonable request to build this culture center further away from the World Trade site?
It's not that people object to a cultural center. It's the mosque component that people have a problem with. That there would be religious services there, so close to a site where people feel like Islam is responsible for murdering 3,000 people. I just think to build a mosque at that site is insensitive to the memory of the people who were murdered that day there.
What are you really saying when you say that these people are not allowed to worship 2 blocks from the World Trade Center? You're saying that their religion is evil, and that's not true.
Herbert Owita was on the 77th floor of the World Trade Center on September 11th and made it out safely. He lost his son Todd that day, who was working on the 105th floor. Despite his terrible loss and through all the pain, Owita is in favor of the Cordoba House.
I don't condemn 1 billion people who follow the Muslim faith, even though my family suffered a terrible tragedy for which I have the pain today, and I'll have the pain all my life in the loss of my son Todd. But even though I have that terrible loss, I don't like to take my anger and my hurt and make things worse for my grandchildren and my children.
Is it insensitive to build this culture center so close, just 2 blocks away from the World Trade Center site?
I think it's insensitive to deny people their religion beliefs. I think it's insensitive to tell people that because there were 19 crazies, part of your Al-Qaeda or whatever, that all Muslims ought to be condemned and considered terrorists. That's what I think is insensitive.
For an inside perspective, we spoke with Imam Mujahid Shah. He is the leader of the neighboring mosque in Tribeca, which he says is overflowing. The Cordoba House will give parishioners an alternative mosque, he says, and will also serve to educate.
I think it will be a gift for every person that lives in Tribeca and around the country that just comes and visits the World Trade Center and then maybe wants to come and see, maybe an art exhibition of Islamic art performance, or even other tourists to come and find sort of this treasure box, where they could sort of interact with Islamic culture.
I was at the rally yesterday. I saw the anger. I felt the rage. What do you have to say about that?
I think, again, it just goes back to communication. I think Americans are very reasonable people. And I think, they're educated. And I think if logically it can be addressed to them that this is something which has both a practical purpose and aligns with basic American values, I think that hopefully the anger will be pacified.
Yesterday you demonstrated the freedom of speech. What about the freedom of religion?
Yeah, I think freedom of religion is important, but I think, religion is something which is present to have harmony, not to create disharmony. So in that sense, if it is something that is, breaking up people and creating rift, then I think it's better not to have it. Because what's important is to have harmony amongst people.
Encouraging words, but for some, not enough. At the opposition rally, speakers like Pamela Geller say that a true measure of healing would be for Muslims to acknowledge their part in the attacks and to respect the World Trade Center site as holy ground.
Ground Zero is a war memorial. Ground Zero is a burial ground. and the moment of truth has arrived. It is unconscionable to build a shrine to the very ideology that inspired the jihadist attacks at Ground Zero, right there.
But away from all the hype and posturing, a sobering thought from Herbert Owita.
I think I understand a lot of things about what they feel. I know what I feel, my own personal loss. I try not to judge everybody. You know, I don't want to say that this is just prejudice. There's deep emotions. They're rampant emotions. Anytime you do anything down at this site, at Ground Zero, you're going to have that. It's just going to be. I understand it, and I don't agree with it. It's just they're hurt, these people. They're hurt. That's why they fight like this. What they really want? They want their loved ones back. But can't happen. It's not going to happen, not in this life.
Coney Island was once one of America's great playgrounds. It was a popular summer beach destination and amusement park for New Yorkers up until the 1950s. That was when the advent of air conditioning kept many people in their homes, and the pervasion of cars carried beachgoers to more appealing Long Island beaches. Coney Island was, for all intents and purposes, abandoned. Today, it sits as a monument to botched city planning, endless and ludicrous litigation, and the victim of neglect and decay. But just last month, a sign of life for the area in the form of a new mini amusement park. Is this a new beginning or just another half-baked measure? Tonight, we'll take you to Brooklyn and see what's new, what's being planned, and find out why Coney Island has been on such a long ride.
You bunch of losers. Come on down. Chupacabra-looking people.
This past Memorial Day weekend, Coney Island saw more visitors than it has seen in almost 50 years. Perhaps one of the reasons was the fanfare surrounding this. The opening of Lunar Park, a small amusement area in the heart of Coney Island.
If you was out here Monday, I don't know if you was. It was no fun. I couldn't sit here. I'd have to get up. There was so much people out here Monday. They was pushing it off the sidewalk. Literally.
We got different people now, different races who are living here now. They enjoying. There's more people come out of nowhere, out of Manhattan, cities, everywhere. They come in here to enjoy something. They stay here. They want to find places to stay here because Coney Island's going to be a better place now.
Community Board 13 District Manager Chuck Reichenthal showed us around.
Give me a little insight of what's coming around for Coney Island. What's new? What do we got?
Well, after years of sitting and working on plans and going into hundreds of meetings with city people, with the community people, with the residents, with the amusement people, with the churches. We've got a lot of things happening.
Okay, good.
Like, if you can see right behind me at this point, we have the new Luna Park amusement park.
Luna Park, right.
And it's even got a frontage that looks like the original Luna Park that ended completely in about 1946.
And there are other new attractions at Coney Island, like this completely renovated $248 million subway terminal. And for the environmentally conscious, the station is outfitted with solar panels to keep energy costs down.
Isn't
Solar
it?
panels?
Yeah.
$248 million?
Oh yeah, it happened a few years ago, and we worked long and hard to ask the city to work on it, ask the MTA to work on it, and it took a while for the stores to come in, and it is fabulous. So that it's relatively easy to take the line down to Coney Island, walk out of the terminal, and walk right into the middle of excitement.
Right. Alongside all this new is a lot of old, empty lots, boarded storefronts, and vacant buildings. Why did this all fall into disrepair? To find out, we asked Juan Rivero with the community group Save Coney Island.
No progress. What's going on?
Well, there is progress now.
Right.
Historically, there's no one explanation for why Coney Island. Well, first for Coney Island's decrease in popularity and decrease in active in attractions, or for why it took so long for us to get to where we are. If you look at the causes for the loss of popularity, there's a number, and they date back to more or less the 50s. You have the increasing prevalence of air conditioning, of the automobile that allowed access to other places other than Coney Island. You had the fiscal crisis. You had urban renewal efforts that really changed the complete tenor of the neighborhood. And you had, it's fraught time. The 60s and the 70s were. Since the 80s, however, organizations like Coney Island USA and certainly Astroland, that had become a steady presence since 1963, began to have a stabilizing effect on the neighborhood, and it made it appealing to a lot of people who might not have gone there before. And that, in addition to the stadium, has started to draw crowds again, certainly within the past 10 to 15 years. So there was certainly this sense that Coney Island was improving, and if anything was standing in the way, was the fact that they were landowners speculating on the value of their land, just sitting on it without willing to do anything.
In 2003, Mayor Bloomberg sold a large portion of the amusement area to Thor Equities, a large development firm infamous for buying land and selling it for profit. It was Thor that decided to tear down sections of the park with the intention of building a 27-story megaplex. But so far, in 6 years, vacant lots and abandoned buildings continue to stand on Surf Avenue.
So the city has its reputation then now, just time and time again.
I mean, it has been a pattern, a historic pattern. There have been plans, redevelopment plans for the last half century, and most of those plans have not come to fruition. Right. So if particularly people who have been there all their lives, if you have people saying, hey, we're going to build this enormous thing. We're going to build a casino. We're going to build a large amusement park that's going to go from the Old Child's Restaurant all the way to Stillwell, and it's going to, bring back, these historic, something like this historic amusements. And none of it happens. If someone is saying, we're going to build 4 high-rise hotels and that's going to fix all your problems, what would you believe?
In the past 50 years, Coney Island has seen many changes, some positive and some negative. The opening of Luna Park brought crowds and a sense of hope back to this forgotten gem. Will this feeling last? Only time will tell.
Rather than having, overhaul everything and expect, a huge rush of development to change everything all at once, to start growing on what's clearly, incremental success in the past several years. You had new businesses, you had increasing programming in Coney Island, USA. You had the stadium. So things were definitely on the way. Things were definitely on the right track before the announcement of the rezoning triggered this wave of land speculation that just led to the eviction and displacement of a lot of people.
So the community should be, in fact, excited
for
this change.
They are. At the beginning, there was a little bit more nervousness than there is now. But I think because we keep talking and we never stop, as you can tell, I never stop, I think we have reached a wonderful initial step. Oh, it's more than an initial step. I think we're moving really nicely together, working all together. And by working all together, all of Brooklyn comes together.
By now, we've all heard about Arizona's new law, SB 1070. It's the one that empowers police and law enforcement officials to stop anyone at random and demand to see proof that they belong here. No papers, and you can be detained and ultimately deported. This effort to stem the flow of illegals is being applauded by the right and bashed by the left. We wondered what would happen if SB 1070 was enacted here in New York. Who would be targeted? What impact would that law have on our economy, our families, and the huddled masses that are the backbone of our diverse population? Take a look at all the people who are in the crowd. Look at the faces. Just by looking at these individuals, can you tell who is an immigrant? How would you know who is illegal and who is legal? Just by looking into the crowd. How would police know? We met with civil rights attorney Elsmeralda Simmons, whom broke down the law in Arizona. She questioned how would authority distinguish who is legal from illegal.
What that law does, I was going to say bill, but it's actually a law, and the Arizona government seems to be very proud of what they've done, is allow the government to stop anyone that they think looks like an immigrant. So tell me, what does an immigrant look like?
Immigrants, someone that's not from this country.
Non-U.S. citizen.
They come here, they just want to look for a good life, and they don't really make any problem.
I think everyone in America is an immigrant, unless you're Native American.
I mean, if they look at me, do I look like an immigrant? Do you look like an immigrant? It's basically legalizing what we would call walking while brown, walking while black, walking while, just being of a certain race or having an accent. It legalizes discrimination against those people.
We interviewed Avram Barlow, who is a teacher, historian, and author. He believes that it is more than a race issue. It's an economic issue.
The problem is that the way that our economic system is set up depends very much on having it's always dependent on having cheap labor to exploit. And those immigrants represent a source of cheap labor for a lot of people. So that demand in our system is not going to go away as long as we have the kind of economic system that we have.
The census estimates that there are 400,089 illegal immigrants in New York City who are most likely being employed by companies and individuals in need of cheap labor. Americans believe that these immigrants are stealing their jobs, which help to increase conflict between immigrants and natives.
These kind of restrictions can build more resentment, more hatred, more restrictions on people that ultimately will harm society. That ultimately are not they're not going to improve economic conditions. Carding people and deporting people is not going to improve economic conditions, but it's going to make life worse for a lot of people.
We sat down with Larry Martin, director of MDEC, which is a group that empowers young men, as well as Pastor Benjamin Garcia and Pastor Carolyn King of a local church, to discuss their feelings of this law and how it would impact New York City.
Usually when you have an economic downturn or people struggling with economics, it's easy to kind of look at the guy that just came on and say, oh, he's the fault. And people don't look at some of the other structural problems in the economy to blame.
So how would you react if this law came in New York?
What we're hearing about in Texas and Arizona, we hear about what's going on over there, and we think about if that comes here, how am I going to live with my family thinking that one day on the way to church they're going to stop us, just because we look Mexican or just because we look the way we look. How are we going to live?
I would feel similarly outraged. Probably more so since I live in New York. And I can't imagine that ever happening here, though.
Just look at us, and we are not white, and they come up and ask, are you really legal staying here and stuff like that? It's annoying. Definitely it's annoying. I don't want that to happen in New York.
I've been here all my life, so I am legal. But for the ones that are doing things illegally, obviously they've got things to worry about. For a city like New York that's so diverse, where do you stop kind of thing?
A law like that in New York City would be very difficult. It would be much more difficult to enforce. I think there'd be much, much broader resistance to it, given the composition of the state and the city. So I don't know if they'd be able to pull that off.
I don't think there's a chance of it coming to New York. And if it came to New York, it would be challenged immediately. But what I don't like is the fact that, and by the way, the United States Justice Department is also looking at the law to see whether the United States federal government is going to challenge the legality of that law in Arizona.
These illegal immigrants and some corporations have many things to worry about. How will law enforcement identify who is legal from illegal? How would this impact companies in the New York City economy if illegal immigrants are totally removed? Will New York's staggering companies be impacted dramatically if illegals are eliminated?
There are probably so many hundreds of thousands of illegal people in this city whose work every day is critical to the running of the city, that if there was some attempt to sort of get rid of those people, this city would grind to a halt.
Overall, immigration needs to be changed. I think that if you look at history, every single great civilization grew because of its ability to absorb new immigrants. For example, Rome is a perfect example of that. The Mongols, in fact, was very adaptive to new immigrants, and America especially. So it's a question about allowing people to be able to enter the country legally, easily, so that they can then contribute to the society in a legal way. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here.
Americans are led to believe that illegal immigrants come to this country with bad intent, but some may say that we fail to realize how much these immigrants can add on to our economy.
Everybody that's coming in is a derelict. Everybody that's coming in is a murderer. Everybody that's coming in has ulterior motives and drug cartels. But his wife is an MD. So you know, everybody's not coming in to dirty, if you will.
If you're a Black American, you've been here for 400 years, how are Black Americans depicted 400-year-old immigrants? You know, if you are an immigrant who's only been here a couple of generations, how is your family depicted? So, you know, we all have our own way of projecting and establishing ourselves in the community, and I think that everyone has a valuable contribution.
Some argue that we should not deport illegal immigrants if this law did come to New York. Instead, we should find a way to make these illegals legal. So being that you're a pastor, and you being a pastor as well, how would you feel if you found out that you did have illegal immigrants come into your church and that the law said that if you did allow them in, you'll be prosecuted? How would you turn these people away? How would you still allow them to come in? How would you react?
I wouldn't turn them away. I'm probably going to go to jail for this. But I wouldn't turn them away as a pastor. They came in to hear the word. I would let them hear the word. I would sit them down after the service and say, okay, this is what we have to do. It would break my heart to turn you back over to whatever it is you're running from. But we have a law. I have an immigration attorney that I would contact and say, here's what we have. What can you do? They're here. What can we do?
Street vendors, artists, and musicians have long been attractions, colorful threads that make up the very fabric of New York. Now, Mayor Mike Bloomberg is trying to reduce, if not nearly eliminate them from some of the busier parks, plazas, and squares around the city. Calling them a public nuisance, the Bloomberg administration says they add congestion to already crowded streets and are a threat to public safety. A threat? Well, it was a couple of street vendors who spotted a suspicious vehicle in Midtown last month and alerted police, who prevented the Times Square car bomb from going off. So what's the deal with this new effort to get rid of the vendors? Is it politically motivated? To find out, we hit the streets. This is the sound of the city, a symphony of cluttered traffic, chattering voices, and the occasional street musician. It's the soundtrack for our busy lives and is now being targeted by the Bloomberg administration. Here, the tunes are provided by the Blue Funk Orchestra, and nearby resides a street artist named Lawrence Klingman.
There's a couple ways to look at it. First of all, I agree with the Bloomberg administration that sometimes there's too many vendors on the street that end up blocking pedestrians. But on the other hand, the pedestrians, 90% of the people who have come over to me and have spoken to me about this kind of thing have expressed their complete discontent with that situation. They love coming to Union Square. They love the art and they love the street life that this kind of art provides, and they're upset at it. So I think Bloomberg needs to really pay attention. If they were to limit the spots in Union Square for street artists, then people would end up fighting with each other to get those spots, and people would pay other people to sleep out overnight, and it would just kind of take the spirit away from the art itself and turn it into more of a competitive business.
A lot of people are in the gray area, and so far I've been okay, but I actually have been asked in other places if I had all my documentation and whatnot, but so far here nobody's said anything to me. So
The tourists we spoke with see the street artists as part of the New York landscape.
We're here to check out the diversity of New York. We just think it's a really interesting place. It's very different than what we came from. So it's really cool to come down here and see the street vendors, and it's a huge inspiration to the performing arts, which is the area that we're in. So it's really neat to come down here and see the diversity.
I like to see all the different things people are selling and the artists, especially the musicians and what they're doing.
Why do you want to be a street vendor?
Well, I think it's a good place to sell my art, number one, and also the nice thing about it is you get to meet with the people who actually buy your art. So this is a great thing for artists. I mean, New York is a city for artists, and it's not easy to get into a gallery in New York City, no matter how good you are.
In this tough economic time, it's for us to open a store, to make a fancy schmancy website. It's not really so easy to do. So we come out here and it's a community of people, and you get to meet people of New York. It's an amazing thing. I never knew about it really until I started working here and still started sharing my my art. And I've been very inspired by the people I've met, and it would change the culture of New York, I think.
A city without art is unthinkable to some.
It's hard to even think about, actually. It's really sad. Well, this is one of my primary incomes. I mean, I pay my rent with vending out here. I eat vending out here. I eat while I'm vending, and I vend to eat. And it's just, I don't know. It's really a freedom of speech and creativity.
But the artists say they won't go without a fight. At a recent rally, tempers ran high.
Artist power! Artist power! Artist power! Artist power!
They refuse to enforce the existing laws. They pretend there are no existing laws. The reason that they let a lot of illegal vendors sell in the park is to increase the public outrage so that people will turn against artists. Well, we're not going to be taking any of that baloney from the Parks Department. We're going to keep selling the art in the parks. If you pass this rule, you're going to have to arrest us.
For about 9 years now, Union Square has been a safe haven for artists to sell and display their work. I believe in 2001 the city ended their lottery system requiring First Amendment vendors to have permits to sell and display their art on the streets and in the park. I've been coming out here for about 2 years selling my photography, and I mean, honestly, it's been great.
Regardless, the city is holding firm and sticking with their plan. Commissioner Adrian Benepe said this: certain parts of parks have become very overcrowded, and people trying to walk through or to the park have to walk through a gauntlet of vendors who don't have permits and are required to have permits, but pretty much set up willy-nilly wherever they'd like.
There's no real good reason to get us out of here. The excuse they're using is that there's too much congestion. But if you look at the green market, they're much tighter and they're much more congested there. And I think they have a right to be here just as much as we do. And to be honest, it's not easy to make a living as a street artist or any kind of artist. And if you want to be an artist in this day and age, you either have, the traditional route is to go through a gallery. But then the gallery, you have to support the gallery with your art, and, they are going to curate your work. So here I can come out and present what I want to present and hopefully earn a living. And, everybody out here has a right to be here. And there's already existing laws on the books to regulate us, but up until recently they weren't utilizing the existing laws. So it seems like they're going in the right direction. But basically I've been planning to come out here for years now. I just came out here for the first time this summer, and I've been preparing for 3 years to get to this point. But if it wasn't for places like Union Square and other parks that have artists, a lot of the charm of New York would be lost.
Whether the Bloomberg administration succeeds or the artists prevail, both sides still want to hold on to the creativity that gives New York City an edge.